Namaste. Welcome again. This video is related to the use of props and also figuring out spacing for our students. How do we do that? So first, I wanted to touch base on my preference, not necessarily my preference, but what I have found effective and what I have found not effective. So, number one, regarding props, the way I look at it, well, let's back up. With the lineages, Iyengar was who developed the props. It's not very well known, but this is because he had actually had back problems and was going to the doctor for this, and he was going to the Western doctors, not the Ayurvedic doctors. So he incorporated the alignment into yoga and thus the creation of props. Other styles, like for instance Ashtanga, they do not allow the use of props during practice. And I think both approaches have a point. Like, what kind of yoga practice are you gonna have if you're always gonna need to carry a bunch of tools with you to go practice? That's just not efficient, and it becomes so that you're always dependent on something. And what happens when you don't have it? Then you can practice. So that's like a downside of props. So upside would be of not using props would be you can practice anytime and you'll be fine. You won't feel like you need something, or you'll be able to do all the postures just fine. So that's one approach. Another approach is, well, some things I can't do or I can't reach. So if I use a prop, it would help me. And again, I have two thoughts on that. If you get to a prop right away, then you're gonna learn with the prop, and once you remove the prop, then it's a whole different story. So it kind of, yoga wants to bring you out of your thinking box, out of your thinking box or comfort zone, and the props bring you right back into that comfort zone. So, are they helpful in some instances? Yeah. But are they detrimental in others? I would have to say also, yeah. For instance, I never allow students to use the wall for headstand, ever. But I allow them to use the wall for handstand, belly against the wall. So from downward dog, feet against the wall, go up the wall. And I find this is useful, but at least they're not just launching themselves up to the wall and having the wall stopping them mid-air, which is what you want to prevent people learning that way to get into inversions. That's an example. But let's say you have a class and you have this, like, older person who cannot really move, cannot really reach, and he's having a really hard time even like on a simple posture like Paschimottanasana, cannot reach, and it's just really difficult. Then a prop may be in order, like an extension of the arms. This is one of my favorite ones. um, to extend the arm. So that, watch my back. What happens is people tend to round the back in order to reach. But truly what they should be doing is grab the shins and getting the back nice and straight, and then using the arms to pull forward. But people don't have that culture, so they try to reach around the back. And if you teach them how to do that with, I'll do that with the camera on the side so you can see better, but if you teach them how to do that with prop, then it's really easy and accessible for in that type of situation. And it's useful because it feels good and it achieves and it motivates, right? Or for instance, let's say that you've been working on the jump backs, and you just can't, bring yourself back. You have the short arm syndrome. Oh, it's just my arms are too short, right? We always have that. So once a month, if you use the blocks to motivate yourself into the jump back, then it's not such a bad idea. But if you use it all the time, then it's a really bad idea. See what I mean? So I would say, contrary to what people believe, that the more advanced a person's practice, the more useful props become. Because for a beginner, you want them to really figure out their capabilities or their limitations and feeling their body. And if you give them a proper way, I don't think that's a good idea. But if you have an advanced practice and you already know things and you know your limitations, you can really take advantage of a prop. You can really use it wisely. Or you can really use it to go beyond places that you can't when you have an advanced practice. For instance, let's say that you can really reach your toes no problem, and you can bend the elbows and come down no problem, and you can wrap around your wrist no problem, and you want more. What if you want more? Well, you can definitely add yourself length with some blocks. So that way, you can push yourself rather, you're using the prop to make it more difficult, not easier. See what I mean? So that's an advanced use of prop. See the difference in those two Paschimottonasanas? With one, you're making it more difficult. With one, you're making it more accessible. Different prop, same posture. So it's not like what I find in yoga or in teaching yoga is that student is looking for the answer. Like student wants, like in this case, you would want me to give you use posture A, B, C, prop this. Use posture D, E, F, prop this. And that's not how it works. What I'm exposing to you with the things that I find so that you experiment with yourself and also with your students and see what is useful and what is not. What's gonna make a practice advance and what's gonna make a practice just feel good and comfortable. You need to determine that on individual basis. But look at the approach. That's what I'm trying to teach you. I mean, At this point, if you're looking to be a yoga teacher, you should not be looking as to how props are used. You should know this already. I'm trying to teach you something a little bit more advanced. Like, you know that you can use this prop to reach the floor. And you can have it like this, or like this. You should know that. I mean, that's too basic to cover here in teacher training. I'm speaking in postures like, for instance, like a, like a Trikonasana. If you cannot reach the floor, you use the block, right? I'll stand up and I'll demonstrate these postures with a better view. Right now we have a higher view. But so you know you can use this posture, or I'm sorry, this type of prop to bring the floor closer to you so that when you're reaching down to the floor, you don't have to strain, you can reach the floor. But what you shouldn't do is put all your weight there. You need to extend away, just like you would do, on the other postures, not just lean all your weight on this. That's one example of good use or bad use of the block, for instance. So my take on this is try to avoid them as much as you can. That would be my recommendation. But sometimes with your students, they're useful. And in your practice, your personal practice, use them as much as you want. Because, I mean, you're a teacher, you should not be beginner practice at this point, right? Okay, now, this is my recommendation also. Blocks. Do not bother buying those cheap foam blocks. If you're gonna buy blocks for your classes, for your studio, for your students, spend time in, this block it's foam, but it's not soft. It doesn't squeeze like the cheap blocks that you can buy at, almost the grocery store and the Target store. Don't buy those. Get yourself a good brand. I always recommend Manduka. I don't get paid or anything, but those seem to have good everything. So something like Manduka is great, okay, for quality. Why? Because when you use a block, you don't want the block to be unsteady or squishy, okay? Now, also, there's two types of blocks. There's heavy ones, like the cork ones, and the wood ones. And there's light ones, like the foam ones. And they both have rights to exist. They both have their different uses. There's a use for this one that I'll go over with you when we do the universal instructions. I don't know if you watched that video, where you're using the block like you would the floor. You're pressing with your hands on the floor, you're extending the elbows, and you're not you're not using the lumbar to come up, and then, so all of these that you work can be done with a block. If you use a heavy block, you're gonna get so tired so quick. So that's why these are good. These are also good for when you're teaching people things with the legs. Okay, I'll go over that in the universal instructions with the block, standing up. But you don't want heavy blocks for that. But for instance, when you're standing on a block with your feet on the block so that you can touch the floor a little bit further down, Maybe you're working on the press up for handstand, maybe, something like that. Then heavy, stable block is what you want. You know what I mean? So the use of the block is different according to why is it made out of a heavy or light material. Very different use. So you want both kind, at least a set of each, so that you can use them for your practice. But if you're teaching, depending on your group base, if you have a group of older people, then you probably want a bunch of blocks and straps. Now, the Iyengar guys do these, what they call it, restorative yoga. I'm sorry, I don't mean to chuckle, but the way I look at it, don't waste your time. You can do that at home on a sofa, okay? What they do is they put, a block and a little blanket, and so they make up this like resting, comfortable place to Shavasana, like arms under this and legs under this. And if you need this, please don't find this, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but if you need that, you should be at a hospital. There is no place for that in the yoga room. I am sorry, but that doesn't develop anything. That is like rest and leisure, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. It's just, why do you leave your house to do that? You can do that in one of those recliners. In fact, you can have the TV in front of you and you'll be doing the same thing. I even have a photo with a person doing the Iyengar style restorative, and then a person laying down on a lazy boy, and it's the same shape. I have it on my Instagram, you can go look. I'm not trying to put it down, I'm just saying, like, I don't understand why people want to do that. What are you doing? Like, you want to leave your house, carry, your pillows and your blankets so that you can go somewhere with a hard floor, put them up and lay down? That's not yoga. Okay? Let's make that clear. That is simply not yoga. That is something else. I don't know why they call that yoga. It has nothing to do with control of the mind. It has nothing to do with development of the body. So, if you want to learn that, this is not the teacher training for that. I don't know anything about that. Matis Ratti was teaching this to me, but it's not something that I teach. Okay? It was funny. I do remember setting up the Matis Ratti workshop, and she wanted 80 blocks and hundreds of blankets, and I'm like, Mati, we're doing this in a hotel. Whoa, what do you mean you want all this? I wasn't sure what she wanted, but now that if you go and look at the universal instructions, you will find out why we use all the blocks. But that's just not efficient. It's not practical. Like, who's gonna go to a trip and take all your props? It's just not practical. It's not good, effective, practical way of doing yoga. If you want to do yoga, you want to eliminate the obstacles for your practice, and having to bring all that, that's an obstacle. Okay? You can see I'm very passionate about that. Andri Dapa says, easy is not effective, and that is easy. It's not effective for anything. It's like permanent shavasana. You know, what is that? Come on. So, very useful to reach, but not necessary, because you can do this with your yoga towel or with a belt, a regular belt, or people have at home neckties or something like that. So this would be probably one of the last props I would buy. They're cheap, but they can be replaced really easy. In fact, one of the props that I do recommend, which is the hand towel, can replace this really easy. I'm gonna put a pause just to keep the video short, and I'll start right away the next one. Namaste.